Hello and welcome to Bloke on the Range. I'm here at Desert Brutality 2020 at the Compass Training Center in Chino Valley, Arizona, and I'm here with Karl, who is really the instigator of this whole type of shooting. And there's been snippets in various InRange videos about the philosophy and the background behind it, but there's never been any single video explaining how we got to this point. So, the brutality matches at the moment, there's Desert Brutality here in the States and Finnish Brutality in Finland, obviously, all running on very similar lines. And it's not like the mainstream disciplines like 3-gun, IPSC, USPSA, cowboy action, all that kind of thing. It's a rather different mix. So before we get into the history, give a brief outline of what a brutality match involves.
Sure. So one thing I would say is that instigator is maybe a good term, but I wouldn't say creator because there's nothing really new. It's an aggregation of different ideas that have been done over time, right? Just like firearms design, there's no real new gun. There's a gun that combines features from 5 guns from the last 100 years, and that's kind of what's going on here. And hopefully it's the right combination of those types of ideas. So I used to shoot a lot of different disciplines, and I still shoot some other disciplines as well. I used to shoot NRA high power across the course, long range, F-class, 1,000 yard, 1,200 yard kind of stuff. I also did cowboy action shooting. I also did 3-gun. I also did some IDPA. So I've got like a pretty wide skeet, trap, a wide variety of just things. I was kind of a competition tourist. And the thing I focused on the most for the longest time was precision at what we call NRA, or across the course here, which is 200, 300, and 600 yard standing, offhand, seated rapid fire, prone rapid fire, 600 yard slow fire. That was what I spent the most amount of my time on. And that's my background, was more of a precision type of thing. That kind of shooting, as you well know, is a very disciplined, interesting skill set that requires a lot of time, dedication, not just on the range, but also preparing. With the ammunition quality, your gun, your sights, your dope, your data. And I got to the point where I got kind of a little burned out. And so I started shooting practical sports and realized, and I also started getting into the training thing. Something we can do a lot of in the States here is, as a civilian, if you're interested, you can go seek out a lot of different training types of scenarios and venues. Places that teach you medical kits or medical gear, or practical shooting, or defensive shooting, or even tactical combative shooting is something that's pretty readily available in the States. And I did that for a while and enjoyed it from the perspective of it was really different. And then I came to the conclusion, I'm like, why is this not a match? Like, these are skills that could be tested and should be tested on the clock. And if you look back in history, they kind of were, and we'll get to that later, I think. But so this is a rebirth of some of the older ideas, but that's influenced by really all of those disciplines that I shot before. There's elements in here once in a while that have high power taste to it. Not maybe this match, but some of them. There's elements of cowboy action shooting, but don't tell anyone. They don't need to know that. But like target presentations, target to target changes, shifts, that kind of stuff, transitions between guns, that kind of comes from that. There's the run and gun element that you see in 3-gun, but then there's a much more physical element too, because I strongly believe that the physical element of martial shooting is highly important. And so what Desert Brutality and all of the 2-gun matches try to be is a combination of all the different skill sets that not just myself but others that are involved believe are important, with the physical element imbued, to make a match environment that is martially minded. That would be the best way I could put it.
Yeah, because it's certainly different to IPSC, which I had a background in. It's different to the old school UK version of practical rifle, which is almost, well, it's not entirely dead, but it's almost dead, which was limitations on the types of ranges that they had, gallery type ranges, so targets on sticks. But the physicality of it goes above and beyond the mainstream action disciplines.
It does.
And so basically, if you can shoot your rifle and your pistol fast, under pressure, you know your manual of arms, you can clear stoppages, because they will happen. And basically, it's a fantastically good time.
It's fun. We have kind of by doing this, I think that we've touched on an exposed nerve that hasn't been touched on in the shooting community for a long time. So one of the things that I've seen in, as you mentioned, like one of the rifle disciplines over there is sort of dying, right? So some of these disciplines are aging out's not the word, but the people that are really engaged in it are getting older. And as a result, which is a natural inclination of human beings, is to therefore make the stage designs and the requirements more aligned with their capabilities. And
Yep.
and so as a result, you go to some of these, and I'm not saying all, and I'm not saying any of these are bad, but when you go, cowboy action shooting is a very different event than it was 20 years ago. Let's just make that as an example. 20 years ago, you might be crawling under a wagon and shooting your lever gun, or you might be running 20 yards or something like that. And now it's all pretty much 3 boxes, pistol here, rifle here, shotgun here, and it's become a very static type of a match environment, which emphasizes some things that are worthwhile. It emphasizes speed, it emphasizes manual of arms, it emphasizes transitions, and very, very high-speed sight picture type of content. But it doesn't emphasize the marksmanship that should be there. It doesn't emphasize the physicality. There's stuff lost in that. So you can go to one thing and you get this one skill set that's in the box, right? And then you go to another match and you get this skill set that's in the box. And you go to another match and you get this skill set in the box. And what I hope we are doing with the Brutality matches is taking those boxes, taking a piece from each, and making a whole new pie.
Yeah, I mean, I'd sort of express it as that it rewards people who've got a palette of experience and technique that they can draw on at various points, because you're going to be forced into an odd position. We've been shooting through tyres that are deliberately too high, a little bit high for a normal prone. So a lot of people, some people rested, some people sat, some people kneeled.
Some people shot the tire.
You're hitting the tire. You're hitting the tire.
Indeed.
That was just gentle ribbing, friend.
It was entirely my fault. Me thinking my sight height overbore is totally fine here. Bang, 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 and I'm getting my visual feedback as I'm shooting, which is telling me I should be hitting, and I'm not hitting. And the RO says, "You're hitting the tire." Oh.
Don't feel bad, Mike. There's footage from me from Tiger Valley with one of my very high bore offset Russian guns, shooting the glass of the vehicle I'm resting on. So it's a thing.
Yeah,
it happens to everyone.
You learn from it, but you need marksmanship. We've had some pretty small target presentations, like little mini IPSC targets at 100 plus yards through an opening and things like that. And doing all of that while panting, we crawled under some hedgehog tank traps, which was rather more physical than I gave it.
Bringing your gun through the dirt. If your gun can't handle the dirt, then it shouldn't be out in a martial environment.
Yeah,
right.
Well, someone with an M1 carbine wrapped it in a towel.
Yeah, they tried to do right. That was trying to think around that.
Yeah.
But that's one of the things we do here is that we get low and in the dirt and in the mess and in the muck, and it's both the test of the person and the equipment.
Indeed. So the Brutality match has been running since 20...
This is the third one that's in Arizona, or in the Southwest, so that would be 3 years ago, so 2017.
2017.
Yeah.
But you've been running 2-gun matches down near Tucson for a long time.
Well over a decade, something like 15 years.
So how did that all start? Because that's what really sort of led into where we are today.
Yeah. And by the way, Finnish Brutality has been 2 years. The third year will be coming up this August. So how that all kind of came about is there was another discipline, another organization that was trying to create a 2-gun type match called ACTS, the American Confederation of Tactical Shooters. They had their own rule set and some stuff, and there was a guy down in Tucson that was trying to run a chapter of that. We're talking, this is ancient history now, but and it was at the same club we still run 2-gun at, which is kind of interesting. And he it just wasn't his thing. Like, his heart was in the right place, but his ability to get the stages right and stuff just wasn't his forte. So kudos to him for putting his foot forward, but it just wasn't working out. So at some point he finally kind of stepped down, and I kind of stepped in there with a couple of my friends that had been shooting it and tried to make it a better thing. And we did turn it into some more interesting stages, but we had some differences of opinion, and this is not a bad thing, this happens in the shooting sports, about how the rules should be written, how the division should be, and some of the safety protocols. There was some just differences there. So we went a different way. They are still running. There are still functional chapters of that, but we created at that point, well, I should say I decided to just break it off and turn it into the 2-gun action challenge match. And the reason for that name was very carefully picked, is that it had no loaded words in it. Like, even though I mentioned in the match in the video earlier that this tries to be a martially oriented match environment, I didn't call it a martial match. I didn't call it a combatives match, because all those things come with some sort of weight or baggage or pre-inclination of things that aren't necessarily what we want. And so 2-gun, which is pistol and rifle, action, well, there's definitely actions. Challenge is definitely a challenge, and it's a match, and it didn't bring any of that with it. So this is a long time ago, well over a decade, broke off, created our own rule set. One of the rules being that if the rule set ever got too big, we would destroy ourselves and start over. Seriously, that's one of the inspirations from other shooting sports.
Look at the IPSC rulebook over the last 20 years. It's just got longer and longer because of people asking, can I?
Yep. And if that ever happens to this, that like one of the unspoken rules is we will self-destruct and restart, because that's not how that will work. I don't think it's going to happen because we're maintaining the status quo. But all that came together, and it ultimately was something we ran there for. I mean myself and a bunch of my ROs and people that help out, which are amazingly important people to anything in the shooting sports. But over time, garnered well over a decade of experience designing stages, what could and could not be done, stuff that people said couldn't be done but can be done safely. And by breaking those paradigms in a smaller environment, gave us a lot of experience towards doing it in a bigger one, like here.
Now, in terms of rule set, I mean, the core of your rules is pretty much in common with USPSA and the others, the general safety rules on safety angles and things like that.
Well, the safety rules have been figured out. But,
Yeah.
I mean, there's certain stuff you don't need to.
Exactly.
You don't need to reinvent a wheel. IPSC, USPSA, IDPA, all those guys, they all pretty much have, for most practical purposes, Cowboy's a little different, but for most practical purposes, they have the same safety requirements. We couldn't figure out any reason to make those different. So
Yeah.
our safety requirements are the same.
Yeah, I mean, the only place which you might have seen on the footage is that you run a more military style ease springs at the end of the stage and leave the bolt forward rather
Yes.
than requiring breach flags. Because first time I saw that, I was like, whoa.
A little jarring.
It wasn't so jarring because I'd been a cadet and I'd been an officer cadet in the UK, so I was used to the manual of arms on the cadet GP in the L85, where at the end, when you're done, you show clear, you ease spring, so you drop the bolt, you fire the action off in a safe direction, so that if anything has gone in there, it goes bang in a safe direction.
Yeah.
But I was more recent history, I was then used to opening the bolt, inserting a safety flag. What was the philosophy behind that difference?
Well, there's a couple reasons that came about. So one of the things that's different and quintessentially, I think, unique about two-gun action challenge match and Desert Brutality and Finnish Brutality, although more so here in the States, is a wide diversity of firearms that are brought to the match. We have divisions at this year, for example, that are classic manual. So I ran a lever gun, and we've got stuff from that all the way up to fully automatic STG-44s, to bullpups, to experimental stuff, to straight up AR-15s and armored. So there's just at this match alone, there's a spectrum of arms. And there is no consistently applicable universal chamber flag safety protocol thing that can be done to all of them at the same time, besides pull out the feeding device, visually identify an empty chamber, close the bolt, and dry fire it. As well as another thing, that's one reason, that's a mechanical one. Another reason is I kind of personally believe that the more you treat your competitors like adults, the more they will act like adults. And what I mean by adults is I mean responsible, because we have younger shooters as well. But responsibility is something that's safety, and responsibility is something that's quintessential to firearms ownership and discipline and responsibility. And we hold a responsible, safe environment, and everybody holds each other accountable. And we have never, I mean this, never in 15 years at both two-gun and brutality matches ever had a firearms-related safety incident.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Fantastic safety record. Just on the point on breach flags, there was actually a problem in the UK of people being overly trusting of breach flags in single-shot bolt actions, and there were cases. In fact, one my father who was a Combined Cadet Force officer at the time, had a bullet go into the ground close to his feet because someone had put the safety flag in without having cleared the rifle properly, and they were overly trusting of the safety flag, and they go to case the rifle, and then ease springs and single shot rifle, and ram goes in, and bang.
Wow.
There've been other issues with snap caps. They've changed the rules in the UK, or Bisley at least, around snap caps on a similar basis of basically people being sloppy and screwing up.
No.
Basically,
No.
which, to be fair, if you do it the military way and then leave the bolt forward and safety catch applied, if it can be, because on an AR-15 with a normal trigger mech you can't.
Well, no, if the bolt's been racked and put forward, you sure can, unless you dry fire.
But you dry fire.
Right, that's true. You're fine.
So it's a bit different like that. And I mean, you have rules around the 180 doesn't apply under certain situations where the rifle's been verified clear. So I'll see if I can put some footage in of a load but not make ready. So before we start even, we recheck that the chamber is clear. We apply the safety catch and we apply a magazine, and then you can sling the rifle.
We started a lot of with condition 3, right?
Yeah.
So in that regard, so let me clarify a couple of things. There are instances in which certain ranges that we shoot these matches at, regardless of our match rules, still require flags. So we will play fairly with whatever the rules are of the local range. Okay, so don't It's something that we have to be malleable with. But I do believe, personally, I have seen safety issues caused by those flags versus mitigated, such as the flag being placed into the chamber and breaking off and leaving a obstruction in the barrel.
Yep. I had one melt on me back in the day.
There's another one.
Yeah.
And we also have some full auto guns and such, and you put a piece of plastic into a hot full auto chamber, you now have a problem. So that's another reason.
Yeah.
In regards to the question you were asking, which was, I'm sorry, can you repeat that exactly?
Which?
You had something you were going to say about chamber flags and.
Oh, it was why you went from military style these springs.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, so I think I've kind of covered that, and I do think, though, I really do that. Let me give you another example of a safety rule where I saw a problem occur. This goes way back. This was at Camp Perry, Ohio. So this is the national matches, which should be top of the top, right?
Yep.
In theory, and they've got rules about you must do this, you must do that. One of the things you must do is either put it on a cart or bag it. Okay. Someone, while in the process of bagging their gun, fired it down the line.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So and similar problem to what happened in the UK?
It went over all the people that were prone. It didn't hit anyone, thankfully.
Yeah.
But it could have. And like I said, I think that when you make so many rules about safety to the point where people don't have to think anymore, they don't think.
Yeah, it's the over-trusting of safety flags. There's a flag in it, it must be safe.
Must be. If it's in a bag, it must be safe. I am personally more terrified of a gun in a bag than I am that's just on a sling. When someone's walking around with just a bag that's just wobbling about, what's the condition of the gun? Where's the muzzle? Is it that way? Is it that way? Is it that way? I have no idea. What's in that bag? It's a mystery black box of unknown. I think those bags are more dangerous than they are someone walking around with it at low on a sling, personally. But that's part of the thought process.
So if we move on to sort of stage design philosophy, because that's where we differ quite a lot from USPSA, IDPA, definitely differ from 3-gun. They're mostly steel, there's mostly relatively small numbers of steel, and then prescribed, you move here, you do this. If you don't do this, there's penalties. Move on, do this. I mean, clearly part of this is efficiency on the range.
Sure.
Part of this is steel targets are expensive, but is there a deeper philosophy behind the stage design?
You touched on a few. One is steel doesn't, unless it's a steel that has to be reset, it doesn't require reset. This allows you to facilitate a high volume of shooters through a course of fire. Small number of targets allow you to do things that are more physical, and you don't need to necessarily present 700 paper targets to present an interesting stage. In fact, our round counts are typically low.
Yep.
But they are low, wow, the minimum is low. The fired round can be high because when you're at the point where you've crawled through tank traps, thrown a kettlebell, and are gassed to the point where you can barely think straight, you'd be surprised how easy it is to miss a relatively large steel target at 50 yards. So the round count goes up based on other reasons than the actual minimum specified round count.
And the longest course of fire was 28 minimum rifle?
28 was the minimum.
And that was the longest course?
Yes. And in spite of that, how many people have you seen, and this is a kind of a rhetorical question, but watching shooters, even if the longest stage requires 28 minimum, how many times have you seen people here having to run dry and change mags?
Lots.
Stages that say minimum rounds required 10 rounds. There's sometimes 2 mag changes on those stages, and it's based on the stage design, right?
Yeah.
So and the other thing about steel is reactive, and this is more under the martial mindset of things. You shoot paper. There's a important element of shooting paper: calling your shots, having groups, precision, marksmanship's real, and we do present paper. We don't present no paper. But steel is tangible and tactile, and when you hit it, it goes ding, or it falls over, or something happens. And in my mind, with rare exception, if you look at the history of the martial use of firearms, when something's hit, it reacts. It may not fall down, but it reacts, for the most part. And so since we're a martially minded environment, I think you should know that when you've hit something, that it knows it's been hit. And so that's another reason for a lot of steel.
Yeah. And certainly from my perspective, because of the way ranges work in Switzerland, there's very little opportunity to shoot on steel at all, let alone with a rifle, because you need a 50-yard minimum safety distance just to be sure, unless you want to go over to expensive frangible ammo or anything like that, and that just puts the cost through the roof, and then you've got to police people's ammo and so on and so forth.
And we do run all our steel at beyond minimum safe distance.
Yeah.
Steel, rifle presentations are beyond 50 yards, and pistol presentations are always beyond 10.
Yeah. Doesn't stop them being very, very tiny sometimes. There's a little mini popper rack You had to shoot around a shield. And who trains that?
Well, I guess riot control and SWAT insertion teams.
Which is not us.
No, but it's an interesting shooting problem.
It was a very interesting shooting problem.
So we'll hear this from people sometimes out in the audience or detractors, like, well, you guys are just LARPing, live action role playing. We have people that come out here and they want to wear cool gear. And you know what? It's fun. It's fun to try that out. It also may not be, it may be your real gear, because we have some real military guys here. And when you call, it's funny in the video, you'll see a comment like, that guy's a LARPer. I'm like, no, he's a Finnish Ranger. Like, is that LARPing anymore? Right? He's actually training. So that's a blurry line. But so, for example, will I ever be with a ballistic shield going in with a SWAT team into an insertion? No, I will never be doing that. But it presents an interesting shooting problem in that now you're shooting support side only or strong side only, probably at can't, which could be a problem that's a real problem in some other way.
And it rewards fundamentals. Because you have to align your sights carefully in this odd position where the gun is far closer to your head than it would otherwise be. It's awkward. You're canting your wrist, you're canting the gun. It rewards sight alignment, trigger press, and knowing your firearm, knowing where it is. Because if your gun shoots particularly high or low or left or right, you've got to know this, because that changes when the angle of the pistol changes.
If your gun happens to hit just a little bit left, hopefully you have a perfect zero on your gun, right? We all have perfect zeros on every gun.
We try to.
But let's say for some reason the great magnet's not shining upon you that day, and it shoots just slightly left. Well, now you can't it. Well, no, now it shoots at 7 o'clock.
Yep.
Do you know that? Do you know how to handle that on the clock? Can you do that? Can you shoot one hand? Can you shoot support hand? Like that kind of stuff. So some of these things, adding the fake ballistic shield is a fun. It adds fun to the shooting challenge. Like if I just came up and said, okay, you have to shoot at a 45-degree angle at this target. You could do that. You could make that a rule. But if we bring in a shield, now there's an element of this is an interesting application of something some of these guys may have done in real life because of the guys that are here. But for us that have seen happen in real life, but you kind of get a little taste of that experience.
And to give another couple of examples from this match, how do you crawl with your rifle? Because that's, again, it's not something you generally think about until you have to do it. And I just sort of grabbed it and leopard crawled. If I'd had something a bit more heavy and substantial, I might have grabbed the sling and had it overarm. Ian, with the FG42, put it forward on the bipod. Walked it, because that's an ungainly thing with things sticking out at awkward angles.
That's a pokey porcupine.
Indeed. And running back up range with the rifle in one hand and something else in the other, while maintaining muzzle discipline. Although there was the option to show clear to the RO and sling and not have to worry about the 180, and a lot of guys did that, so they could just hang it around their neck and run. But that costs time, and you got to think about these things in your stage plan and on the clock, and it really rewards the best shooters overall. I mean, I would love to bring, for instance, one of the Great Britain target rifle shooters out here who could outshoot me any day of the week with a target rifle, which is a very specific type of sling-supported long-range centerfire rifle shooting. And if they didn't have military experience, see how they did on this.
Be a curious experiment.
Yeah.
Yep.
That would be cool. See. Because before I did Finnish Brutality, there were a couple of comments under the intro video saying, "Oh well, Mike does all this precision stuff. I think he's going to come a complete cropper."
You did exceptionally well.
Thank you.
And you did exceptionally well this year at this as well.
It rewards fundamentals. It rewards doing fundamentals fast, and then you've got all the other physical stuff on top of it.
It also rewards being, I think, it rewards mental fortitude and being able to overcome adversity.
Yeah.
We present stuff that, is crawling under a tank trap a shooting challenge? No. Is throwing a kettlebell a shooting challenge? No. Is sprinting 300 yards on a stage a shooting challenge? No. But when you pick up the gun and shoot the target after doing those things, is it a shooting challenge? Yes. And it's a shooting challenge that can only be experimented with and found out about and learning about yourself and your gear until you've done that. And so, like you said, we have some small targets. For a precision shooter, the target presentations out here are ridiculously large.
If there was no buzzer, if there was no time pressure, if you were not forced into odd positions,
or if you weren't gassed, or you hadn't shot 3 of these in a row and you're at the point where you just want to go home, and really the camaraderie of your fellow shooters are what kind of keeps you going, which I think is another reason we have a really good spirited crowd.
Oh yeah, it's a very self-selected group.
Yeah,
and it's great. everybody has been absolutely fantastic on this match. No, not heard any complaints about anyone ever.
This is the kind of place where it's like, I saw you had a problem with some of your gear. Let me use mine.
Yeah.
If your division allowed that,
Yeah.
just take it, use it, please. Oh, you need some ammo? Here, have some. Like cheering for the other guy doing well, versus some environments where you're like, oh, he messed that one up. I have a chance. There's not that here.
No.
I don't see that.
No, and all it takes, no matter how good you are, you can just have one screw up on a stage, be it gear, be it physical, guy tore a hamstring,
Yeah, he did.
be it mental, you're tired, you're dehydrated, it's the end of the second day and you have a complete brain fart for whatever. Both me and Ian had them.
Yeah.
He got tunnel vision on a, what are they called?
A mini-mo.
A mini-mo.
From MOA targets.
Yeah, and I had a brain fart believing that ammunition and the magazines I had were filled.
Yeah.
I thought I checked them. I hadn't. I should have rechecked, and it's one of these things that I'll build in for next time.
See, that's funny.
Check and recheck.
See, there's an example. You just touched on something that comes from a training environment brought into a match environment. When you're done with a drill in most training environments, unless you're actually injured, what's the first thing you do? The first thing you do is maintain your gear.
Mm-hmm.
Then you.
Yeah.
Right? Then someone else. So you're like, all right, mag's topped off in my pouches. Is everything right? Does my gun need lube? Do I need to clean anything off? These things all come first because your gear is what allows you to succeed. Then you check yourself. Am I okay? Do I need water? And then you're okay. Like, Mike, are you okay? Right? But that order of events, and that comes from training environments. It comes from a lot of military environments
Yeah.
too. So that's one. I'm not making fun of this because it happens to all of us. But you missed the first step of that, and you landed up reloading with like a partial and a.
Yeah.
Right. So no, that happens. I've done it too. But that's the unspoken part.
Yeah.
That's in this environment that kind of isn't really visible.
Yeah, and the thinking, what do I do if it went bang? I felt the recoil was different. I can't even remember now whether I tried to take another shot or I just hadn't felt it sploying forward. I'm like, shit, mag. Okay, go to my reserve in the other pouch and carry on and try and not let yourself be too flustered by it. Or you're hitting fine. It's also happened to me. Hitting fine. Suddenly not hitting anymore. And then you sort of, right, what am I doing wrong?
The internal screaming starts intensifying.
Yeah, it's like, why is this not hitting? Okay, I need to reset something. It could be me. It could be I could be pushing onto the rifle with those pencil barrels. It pushes it quite substantially off. But okay, I'll just move my position slightly, and that will fix both of those.
Yep.
Both of any potential physical issue of pushing on the gun, and the mental issue. It's a reset.
You probably reset your mental situation more than you have anything with the gun.
Probably.
Yeah.
And then I was hitting again.
Mm-hmm. But that's stress inoculation,
Yeah.
right? The more you do this, the more the buzzer becomes less of a thing that gets you to freak out.
Yeah.
It's at the point now where the buzzer, for a lot of people, is just like, oh, the buzzer went off. Here's a bunch of stuff I need to do before the buzzer goes off again. Is the way to think about it.
Yeah.
But when you first start this off, it doesn't sound like that. When you first start this off, you sit there, first time as a match, and if you haven't, you'll experience this when you go, for the most part. Do you remember what you're supposed to do? Yeah. Shoot into the course of fire. Yeah. The buzzer goes off. Beep. All that's gone, and all you hear is "Go fast!"
Yeah.
And that is when it all goes wrong, right?
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, when I first started doing IPSC handgun, during the course, they'd really go, don't DQ.
Yep.
It's kind of negative. And your first 3 matches, you're sort of on probation, and like all that's going through in your head as you
unpleasant.
walk up to the line. You load and make ready. You feel your palms starting to sweat, and you like I can't. Don't screw up. Don't screw up. And it's sort of all encompassing your being. And people then screw up because all they're thinking in their head is screw up.
Not to sound like some sort of like inspirational thinker, but when you're thinking negative thoughts, it generally results in negative outcomes.
Yeah, I used to be scared of modular bullet traps with a target presentation in them, because if you pulled a shot and it landed within a strip of gaffer tape, it was a DQ. It was deemed a shot in an unsafe direction, and it was actually I mentioned this to Saul Kirsch, to name drop because I used to shoot with him at matches in Holland, and he said, "Why are you scared of it?" Well, because I'm worried about a DQ. He said, "Right, if it was just on the sandbank at that sort of distance, would you have a problem with it?" Like, no. So why have you got a problem with it? It's like, oh yeah. So then you get in your head, okay, it's the usual frontside press.
Didn't change anything.
Doesn't change anything. But if you're being drawn away from doing what you should be doing to what you shouldn't be doing, it's like training children as well.
I bet.
And dogs. Yeah, sorry. Back at the back at the plot, I mean, you started putting two-gun action challenge footage on InRange. Did Ian come in before you thought?
The two-gun action challenge stuff came after it, Ian. So that whole story is interesting. I was watching. This is before I met Ian. This is a long time ago now. I was Googling I was trying to research the VG-15, the Volksgewehr weird thingy, and I find this weird dude in a sweater in a bunker shooting one of them in Europe somewhere.
I've been in that bunker. I know where that is.
Special bunker, and I'm like, what the heck's this? And I watched it. And it was really interesting. You know, it was like 480 granular. It was old, super old Forgotten Weapons footage, and then I went, well, I'll watch the next video that comes up, and then I see him at a range up in Phoenix, in Arizona, trying to shoot one of the reproduction FG-42s in a 3-gun environment. And it's very clear that the rules there, not only the ammunition, but the rules based on what he has to do, is making it very impractical to be able to do anything interesting with this historical gun in their environment. It's not an AR. They're like, why did you bring this thing here?
What is this witchcraft?
Yeah, exactly. And that's how I can see it's palpable in the video that they're all looking at him with this like what is this? And so that I had already been running the two-gun match, and I emailed his email address that was somewhere listed as somewhere, and I'm like, quite honestly, I'm like, that match sucks. Why don't you come to ours? I think you'll find it more palpable to what you're trying to do. He showed up, and that became the birth of us getting to know each other and starting to do historical gun versus content, which is when you first started seeing two-gun. The earliest two-gun videos are actually on Forgotten Weapons, and then we decided, we're like, wow, there's a room to talk about my knowledge based on where I worked on in guns, and his stuff, that his interesting guns were an interesting combination, and we're like, let's combine those two and make something else, and that's what InRange is, or started. Yeah,
and you've made a big thing out of it.
I hope so. I mean, I would have never expected any of this. No.
Yeah, I didn't expect mine.
Life is a strange thing. You know, you can think, that sounds so philosophical, but you could plan everything all day long, and it probably won't be what you planned.
I planned to do 2 videos.
Yeah.
And then I sort of got bitten by the bug, and it sort of ballooned, and now I'm here standing with
Exactly.
you.
How did
which
you
is awesome.
in Arizona shooting a crazy two-gun match, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, you can't. It's an interesting world.
Yeah. And just for reference, it's like early afternoon Saturday right now. I've been work Monday morning.
Ugh.
I'm getting the night flight out of Phoenix tonight.
All right.
But yeah, I think that was interesting. Thanks a lot for.
Thanks for having this interview, and Mike, thank you for shooting Finnish Brutality and Desert Brutality, and for your friendship.
Well, thank you for having me, and yeah, thanks for.
It's a pleasure to have been able to spend more time with you.
It's been excellent being out here. Thank you so much. I mean, Ian and Karl and me are sort of kindred spirits on this kind of stuff.
Really
and sort of
are, yeah.
hit it off. I mean, you started commenting on my Facebook page, I think, and that was how we got in contact with each other, and we ended up. We've been in Finland together. We're here together.
Yeah, it's going to happen again.
Yeah.
Like minds do come together. The internet, for some of the bad things on the internet, it brings us a lot of good too.
Yeah.
And stuff like this is one of them. So.
Exactly. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
General thanks to everybody, Karl and Russell Fagan, Sinister Rifleman, for organising the match. Compass Training Centre, who have been excellent hosts the whole time. They've been absolutely brilliant. Their organisation has been fantastic. The RO squads have been fantastic. Thank you also very much on my side to my patrons who made it possible for me to be here.
Yes.
Thank you very much to my employer as well.
And let me say that as well. So the brutality matches are sponsored by companies, because the shooting events like this, you have no idea what it takes to put this on. I mean, that's another topic, but if you saw it, it would blow your mind. So the match is sponsored by things like Brownells and other sponsors. We have a lot of them, and I should check that out. But just like you were saying, I'd like to thank my InRange Patreons, because InRange doesn't have any corporate sponsorship. InRange only exists because of viewers. Only viewers. That's it. So don't get confused. The match is different than InRange. They're different things, but InRange is only viewer supported, and I am beyond humbled by the support that InRange has seen in its audience. It's astonishing and wonderful, and hopefully that will be something that people feel good about supporting, because it's amazing to be able to continue to create content like this because of people watching.
Yeah, this is fantastic. Viewer driven. It's not corporate driven, not advertiser driven.
No masters.
But on my side, yeah. On my side, it's also driven, and I need to give, even though she won't see it, I need to give thanks to my wife for being eternally tolerant of this side project of mine, because without her support of allowing me to come over here and spend 4 days in Arizona, I couldn't be here.
That's awesome.
Absolutely awesome. Nicole, thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Nicole, for letting us have Mike here for the match, because it's wonderful.
Right, so thanks very much, and bye.